This gorgeous looking MATX white motherboard is Maxsun B860M Cross Pro. Based on Intel's latest 1851 socket with B860 chipset, this motherboard is truly a unique one in many ways. And besides the obvious part that it's almost fully white, it is very idle themed, and you can see it everywhere, in the box design and on the motherboard itself. The second distinct feature is the screen that is built into VRM heat spreader. But how actually good is this motherboard? Is it worth buying and building a system based upon it? Let's review in this video. First of all, this motherboard was sent to me by Maxsun, but they did not intervene in the review process in any way. Second, this motherboard actually has two versions. One is the Cross and the second one is the Cross Pro. I have the Pro version. The only difference between them is the screen in the Pro version. Otherwise, they're absolutely identical. And let's begin with the box, because the box is, well, very unique. It's definitely a case where you do not throw away the box and just put it somewhere on the shelf to brighten up the room a bit. And who cares about the specs when we now know the girl's being called Maxsun Aya? I really hope I pronounced it correctly. The box contents, besides the motherboard, of course, are also quite nice. Not to mention this artwork is pretty cool. So, you also get a white Wi-Fi antenna, which is really cool, bonus points for that. Included SATA cables unfortunately are black, but I don't really see a lot of people using SATA nowadays. And if that AliExpress figurine you ordered has not arrived yet, Maxsun has you covered. Yeah, it's very simple plastic, but still, a very nice touch. More black SATA cables, and very interestingly, Maxsun also includes a screwdriver kit in this motherboard. I guess if an actual girl will buy this motherboard, she will have no problem assembling it. But we all understand that's very unlikely and who's the target demographic for this motherboard. There's also some stickers and promo materials. For example, this thing says that you can download the manual here using this QR code. The manual is really well translated to English, so there's no problem there. And of course stickers, because why not? Princess iCraft will be a good addition to your white case, if you're into that kind of thing, and you're obviously into that kind of thing since you're buying this motherboard. As I already said, it's almost completely white. Not as white as Gigabyte I series. Those are like really white. Everything there is white. Maxsun is not there yet. At least the DRAM slots are white, which is not something you get on every white motherboard nowadays. But I would say it's white enough. You can also see that all the design elements are either pink or blue, which also really adds to the design. Really nice and unique looking. I think it's designed really well. It looks very good in my opinion. There's really nothing to complain about. The radiators are fully white, and these, I don't know, holographic shimmery things on the radiators, they change color based on the angle you're looking at them. And the back of the motherboard is also really good looking, and if your case allows you to see the back of your motherboard, it's definitely gonna add up to the overall design and impression of your build. Now, one thing to note is that the screen is extremely fragile. Do not remove the protective film until you install the motherboard into the case. It is extremely easy to scratch, so be careful. Same thing about this rainbow shimmery thingies on the radiators. Do not remove the protective film unless they're already installed and you're not gonna touch them. I also want to point again that all the metal parts are fully white. As you might have noticed, most other manufacturers do not paint the heatsinks white. I wonder if this affects the heat dissipation somehow. Overall, the board design is definitely awesome and I really like it. Let's jump to specifications. The audio codec here is ALC1220, which is really good. You don't really expect half-decent audio from motherboards of this price, so it's a really good thing to have. The bottom side of the board has most of the black elements lined out on the bottom, so they are not really like popping into your eye when you look at the motherboard. So we get front panel audio and an RGB button that cycles RGB modes, and you can change RGB colors or modes just by clicking this button, which is really interesting. Right next is a RGB port for your fans or light strips. Next is two USB ports, and only one of them is 9-pin, the typical one that is used for front panel port. Why only the single 9-pin? Because the other one is occupied by the screen and is located here. Yes, a screen does require a USB port, and you have to sacrifice one of those for a screen. So if you really need two of those 9-pin USBs free for whatever you're planning to build, you might need a different motherboard or come up with a different solution. Next are 4 SATA ports, typical for a B motherboard, 2 4-pin fan connections, and front panel case connections. On the right side there's a power button, which is really convenient if you're into overclocking, a 20GB Type-C front panel port, and 5GB USB front panel port. On the top there's 3 extra 4-pin fan headers, a postcode indicator, and a 3-pin and a 4-pin RGB connectors. There's really one important thing to understand, that this is the only 4-pin fan port that supports 3-pin fans or pumps. 3-pin fans or pumps will work in other ports, but they will just work at 100% all the time. You cannot control them. So if you want to regulate your pump, you better plug it here. And if you have 3-pin pump and fans, then you'll have to choose which one you can regulate. And this motherboard actually has 6 4-pin fan connectors. The last one is hidden here. Overall, the internal port count for this motherboard is really decent. For the back panel, we actually have 8 10GB USB ports. Each of these 4 ports connect to a USB hub, so there might be some kind of a overall bandwidth limitation, but I didn't test it. But I don't think it should be a problem for like 99% of the people, unless you plug in every USB device you have and try to write like 100-200 megabytes per second. There's also a USB 4 40GB Type-C port that also can provide up to 15 watts of charging. And it's not marked as Thunderbolt, it's marked as USB 4, which is a little weird. There's also HDMI and DisplayPort for CPUs that has built-in graphics, a Realtek 5GB Ethernet adapter that is hidden on the back of the motherboard, an Intel Wi-Fi 7 solution BE200, which is perfectly good, 3.5mm ports for the ALC1220, and you can actually see those disappear nowadays, so having a full array of ports is really good. And a clear CMOS button, in case you want to clear those BIOS settings. Now let's discuss PCI Express. The M.2 radiators are actually pretty decent. They should handle most of the M.2s you might throw into this motherboard. The third M.2 port is not covered though. The graphics card release mechanism is now a button, which is very convenient and many manufacturers do this now. And overall PCI Express connectivity is really decent. You get 3 M.2s. One of them is 5.0 that is going through the CPU lanes, GPU gets full 5.0 16 lanes, and the bottom PCI Express port has 4 lanes and goes through the chipset. Really good for an M.ATX board. Now let's discuss the screen in more details. As I already said, it's really easy to scratch, so only remove the protective film when the motherboard is installed, or otherwise you'll get scratches all over it, and it's really impossible to clean. I also want to remind you again that it uses one of the USB 2 9 pins, so only one is empty. If you need them for more screens or whatever, be careful with your planning. Overall, I would call the screen quality okay. There's nothing like exceptional, but it's pretty decent. And of course, as always with a screen, you need a special piece of software to control it. You need to go to Maxsun website and download Maxsun View. And obviously, just like with any RGB or screen software, it must always be running in the background. This is how it looks, and by default it's actually being installed in Chinese, and you can change the language here. But I asked Maxsun to make it English by default for a non-Chinese system, and they actually did it. Now when you download it, it will be in English. Really thanks to Maxsun for that. For the software, it's not super intuitive, but it has a lot of features. Yeah, you might spend some time playing with it, understanding what it can do, what are the limitations. So you can make this cool matrix mode style pictures yourself. You can actually set boot video, shut down video, idle video. You can set up that it will play the video all the time, even when computer is off, but I do not recommend that. This video is actually going to be played by default when the system boots, and it's pretty nice. As you can see on the right, it actually has limitations, not more than 10 seconds and 3 megabytes. But it's always like that with screens on AIOs or whatever. Most of the people will probably use the theme. It has less limitations and it can show data from your computer like temperatures or usage or whatever. You can change the font. You can actually mirror a part of your desktop. I don't know why would you do that, but I guess it's possible. So as I said, the software is not super intuitive, but you spend a little time and you'll get it fully operational and do whatever you like with it. Sometimes when you upload the video, it's a little glitchy. In this case, you need to power off the system completely and it will be fine. Next is the BIOS, and oh man, the UI is completely new. If you've seen Maxsun motherboards for AM5, AM4 or 1700 socket from Intel, it's nothing like that. Maxsun performed like an FTL jump in terms of BIOS interface quality. And yeah, this BIOS is themed to a more pinkish color. The usual color is blue and black, but man, this is so good. Everything important is here. Fan curve adjustment is really nice, just like you would expect on a Gigabyte Asus motherboard, and it's very good. This new BIOS, I really like it. If you've seen how Chinese motherboards handle fan curves, you understand my excitement. So most of the good stuff is here, but if you go to advanced, everything you expect from a decent motherboard is presented here. Everything works. It's really good. I'm not going to go into full detail of the BIOS because, well, overclock is the main thing I really like, but it's not an overclocking motherboard, but believe me, everything you want from overclocking is there. The status page is also very decent and can provide a lot of information. And another exciting thing, it has full support for profile saving. And of course, there's graphical BIOS updates, so you can update your motherboard BIOS with a graphical interface. Overall, this BIOS is 10 out of 10. Now let's discuss VRM, because it's very important. First two things I thought about this motherboard is, man, how is this screen gonna affect VRM temperature, since it's huge and it's built in right into the heatsink? And the second thing is this second VRM heatsink that is not connected to the main one with a heat pipe or something, is it gonna be sufficient? Now, the VRM itself is really decent. It has 19 power stages. 16 are being used to power the CPU cores. The 16 power stages are combined into 8 phases using this Rechtech controller. The power stages being used are Vishay 50 amp power stages, so absolutely decent for this kind of motherboard. How good is the cooling? Is it enough to cool these power stages? I only have an i7-265K, which is more than enough for this motherboard, so I've been running Cinebench for more than an hour with absolutely no cooling on an open stand. This motherboard unfortunately doesn't have a VRM temperature sensor, so I had to rely on my thermal camera, but nowhere I could find a temperature more than 64 degrees. Even the small heatsink looks very much fine. Honestly, this VRM is an overkill for any CPU you might throw in, and the radiators are decent enough, so don't worry about your CPUs. Want to put a 285K here? No problem. And as always, there are dual 8 pins, but you need only one to power the CPU. No need to plug in both. Next thing to discuss is DRAM, and Maxsun is actually saying that you should put your DRAM modules in the right slots. Really good guy Maxsun, since not everyone knows that. So the maximum DRAM speed advertised by Maxsun is 9066 MHz. My best guess it's CU DIMMs they were using for this speed. We were actually testing motherboard maximum memory speeds on a stream on my main language channel. I don't stream on this channel yet, but maybe in the future, let me know in the comments. And if you need paid overclocking services, please telegram this guy here, who is really a good expert and will help you to overclock whatever you need. So the maximum manual overclocking memory speed we reached on this motherboard was 8400. But we actually had to reduce it to 8333 because 8400 was not good in Y-Cruncher in the long stress test. And that's using UDIMM memory. And in terms of XMP stability, these Kingbank modules worked really well, while the Patriot memory was not stable with XMP 8000. Though they're perfectly good memory and we used it for overclocking. So my recommendations for this motherboard are quite simple. First of all, no 4 sticks of DDR5 for any motherboard, including this one. If you plan to go 16 or 24 GB sticks, you can go up to 8000. If you plan to go high capacity sticks like 32-48 GB sticks, then do not exceed 6800 MHz. For CU DIMM, do not exceed 8800 MHz, but just do not buy CU DIMMs in general. So, what is the overall impression of this motherboard? I really like it. it's a really decent motherboard. The only thing I don't like is that there is no BIOS update button and only single port that control 3-pin fans. Basically, otherwise, it's a perfectly great motherboard. And you can build a very nice white system, just like I'm displaying here, because I already used this motherboard to build a system with it. The screen is really decent, it really adds to this motherboard overall design. Yeah, it has some limitations and there's a learning curve for the software, but it's pretty good. Overall, I really like this motherboard, and if you plan to build a full white Intel 1851 build, then there's nothing stopping you from using this motherboard. Thank you for watching this review. I hope this was informative. Leave any question in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video.